I couldn't sleep. The baby kept moving, gentle flutters against my belly, as if he sensed something I couldn't name. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours, trying to convince myself I was just overthinking. But a strange ache settled in my chest. Not physical, not from pregnancy. Something colder. Without really thinking, I reached over to Daniel's side of the bed and picked up his tablet. I told myself it was harmless. But deep down, I already knew I was about to lose something I wasn't ready to let go of. I didn't have to dig. The messages were right there, like he didn't even care if I found them. Dozens of them. Her name, their plans, their pictures, little heart emojis, goodnight kisses, dates. I felt this sharp heat rise in my throat, but I didn't cry. I just kept scrolling, reading every detail of how he started seeing her just weeks after I told him I was pregnant. Every word from him felt like a slow unraveling, like I was watching the future I'd built fall apart in real time. When morning came, I asked him. No accusations, no yelling. I just asked. He looked at me, not shocked, not sorry, and said, "You've changed. You're boring now. I need to feel alive." That was it. That was all he gave me. No guilt, no fight, just a verdict, like I'd already been dismissed. I went to the bedroom, packed a small bag, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I left everything, except the one thing he couldn't take from me. The morning air hit different when you're walking away from everything you thought was permanent. I didn't know where I was going exactly, just that I couldn't stay. I hailed a cab, one hand on my belly, the other gripping that small overnight bag like it held my entire life. The driver didn't ask questions. Thank God. I wouldn't have had the words. Every block we passed felt like peeling off another layer of who I used to be. I kept telling myself, just breathe, just keep going. I checked into a cheap hotel near the hospital. Nothing fancy, chipped paint, flickering hallway lights, a bed that squeaked with every breath. But it was mine. For the first time in months, I didn't feel watched or judged or quietly resented. I curled up on that scratchy blanket and let the tears come. Not the loud kind. The kind that slipped down quietly without asking for permission. My baby kicked again. And somehow, that one small movement reminded me I wasn't alone. By sunrise, something shifted. I sat by the window, watching the world stretch into a new day, and I made a quiet vow. I would not let his betrayal shape the way my son entered this world. I'd carry the pain, yes, but I'd also carry the strength to rise from it. I wasn't just leaving a man, I was leaving a legacy of silence, of settling, of not being enough. And maybe I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing for sure. This child, he'd be born into love, not lies. I didn't tell anyone right away, not even Lena. I needed to sit with it first, the heartbreak, the silence, the realization that love can rot from the inside without you even noticing. I replayed his words over and over again. You've changed. As if carrying his child had turned me into someone disposable. And maybe I had changed. Maybe that was the point. I wasn't the girl who begged to be chosen anymore. I was the woman who chose herself, even when it hurt. Eventually, I called Lena. Just her voice on the line made my chest crack open. She didn't ask for details. She just said, "Where are you? I'm coming." And she did. She brought food, extra clothes, and that calm, no-nonsense energy I'd always leaned on. She didn't tell me it was going to be okay. She just sat with me in the mess of it. We ate takeout on the bed and watched stupid reality shows, and for a moment, I almost forgot the hollow space inside me. But every time I looked down at my belly, I remembered. And I knew this wasn't just about heartbreak. This was about legacy, about what kind of story I wanted my child to be born into. Not one where his father's name sat on his birth certificate like a stain I'd never quite scrub out. No. This was my body, my labor, my pain. And soon, my son. And though the world around me had cracked wide open, I was already starting to feel the shape of something new forming beneath the rubble. The apartment was small, one bedroom, a kitchenette, and a window that looked out onto a brick wall. But it was mine. I signed the lease with a shaking hand and a belly that seemed to grow heavier by the hour. No one held the door open for me this time. No one called it our home. But there was something quietly powerful about that. For once, I wasn't waiting for someone to show up. I was the one doing the showing up. For me, and for the life growing inside me. I blocked Daniel's number the same day I moved in. No long message, no final goodbye, just a clean cut. He didn't deserve an explanation, not after the wreckage he left behind. But of course, that didn't stop him from trying. A couple days later, his name lit up on my screen. Unknown number, voicemail. I didn't even have to listen to know the tone. Not regret, not apology. Just entitlement, wrapped in a demand. Update me about my son. That one sentence boiled my blood. My son. He hadn't bought prenatal vitamins. He hadn't held my hair back when I was sick. He hadn't even asked if we were okay. But suddenly, he wanted ownership? Like this baby was a possession, a trophy with his name on it. I stood in the middle of the empty living room, holding the phone with one hand and my belly with the other, and I whispered it for the first time, not to him, but to myself. He'll never own my child. Like he tried to own me. Lena came over almost every evening, arms full of groceries or folded laundry, acting like it was the most normal thing in the world. She never treated me like I was broken, just tired, just transitioning. That meant everything. She didn't tiptoe around the silence. She filled the space with laughter, sarcastic commentary, and stories that had nothing to do with pregnancy or men. And when I cried, she let me, without questions, without trying to fix it. Just there, solid. There were moments I thought I might break anyway. Like when I stood in the baby aisle, holding a tiny onesie, and realized I'd be the one assembling the crib, changing every diaper, wiping every tear, alone. But then I'd feel Lucas shift inside me, reminding me I wasn't really alone at all. He was with me, in every breath, every decision. That gave me strength I didn't even know I had. Not loud strength, quiet, steady, rooted strength. The kind that grows in hard soil. Some nights, I'd sit by the window and just listen to the city hum around me. I imagined what kind of mother I'd be, not perfect, but present. Fiercely present. I thought about the kind of man I'd let into our lives, if ever. The bar was high now, higher than it had ever been, because this wasn't just about love anymore. This was about protection, legacy, freedom. And slowly, I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I was enough on my own. The days began to blend, prenatal appointments, long walks, late-night kicks that kept me up but oddly comforted me. I made a list on the fridge of names I liked, foods Lucas reacted to, songs that seemed to calm him. It became our little routine, our little world. I didn't have a partner beside me rubbing my back or making midnight tea. But I had something better. Peace. And I was learning to wear it like armor. Soft, but impenetrable where it mattered. Daniel kept trying. Emails. Messages through mutual friends. But not once did he say, "I'm sorry." Not once did he ask how I was doing. It was always about him, his rights, his name, his image of fatherhood. As if biology gave him automatic access. But I wasn't the same woman he betrayed. I was someone new, someone who saw clearly now. And every time he reached out, it only confirmed one thing. He wanted control, not connection. One night, I sat in the bathtub, warm water hugging my body, hands resting on my stomach. Lucas kicked, and I whispered, You won't carry his name, you'll carry your own. Saying it out loud felt like breaking a spell. That's when the decision solidified. I would give this child a fresh start, a clean legacy. One not tangled in lies or manipulation. He would be born with his mother's love and her last name. And Daniel? He wouldn't even see it coming. Labor started quietly, almost like a whisper. A cramp here, a tightening there. I was alone in my apartment when it began, folding baby clothes I'd washed the night before. No drama, no panic. Just a sudden awareness. It was time. I grabbed the hospital bag I'd packed weeks ago, called Lena, and sat at the edge of the bed for a moment, breathing. This was it. The moment that had been slowly building through every tear, every choice, every ounce of strength. At the hospital, the nurses were kind. One of them rubbed my back between contractions, and for a fleeting second, I wished Daniel could see me like this, raw, powerful, bringing life into the world. But I shook the thought away. He didn't deserve this view. This wasn't his moment. This was mine. And when they finally placed my son on my chest, all slick and wailing and perfect, I wept. Not from pain, from power, from love, from the knowing that I had done it, without him. Hours later, with Lucas sleeping beside me and Lena curled up in the chair, the nurse brought in the paperwork. She handed me the birth certificate forms and smiled. You can fill this out whenever you're ready. I stared at the line that said, Father, then left it blank. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Then I got to the surname. My pen hovered. And then, with a strange calm, I wrote it. Lucas Martins, my name, my bloodline, my choice. The nurse glanced down at the form, then back up at me. Are you sure? She asked gently, like she was offering me one last chance to reconsider. I smiled, not wide, but certain. Yes, he doesn't deserve to live on through my son's name. She nodded, no more questions. And just like that, it was official. Lucas Martins. The name felt right. Not borrowed, not tainted, not a reminder of broken promises. It was pure. Entirely his. Entirely ours. Later that night, while Lucas slept in the clear plastic bassinet by my side, I traced his tiny fingers with mine. He had his own identity now, free from Daniel's shadow, free from the weight of a man who chose absence over presence. I didn't feel guilty. I felt relieved. Because names are more than tradition, they're stories. And Lucas's story wouldn't begin with betrayal. It would begin with a woman who chose strength over submission. A woman who refused to pass down pain. Lena brought a little balloon that said, "Welcome, baby Lucas," and taped it to the foot of the hospital bed. We laughed at how crooked it looked, but in that crookedness, there was something beautiful, something real. It wasn't the family I once imagined, but it was a family nonetheless, built on truth, on healing, on love that doesn't demand, but gives. I looked down at my son, and I knew. This name, this moment, this quiet declaration, it would echo long after the pain faded. Back at home, everything felt different, not easier, but somehow lighter. I placed Lucas in the crib I'd assembled myself, slowly rocking him to sleep in the quiet warmth of our apartment. His name was on the little blanket draped over the side, Lucas Martins. I had it embroidered the week before, long before I even gave birth. I think deep down, I always knew I'd choose this path, that I'd cut that last thread tying us to Daniel's legacy and not look back. The official documents arrived 2 weeks later. Birth certificate, social security card, all listing the name I'd chosen. I held them in my hands like sacred proof. Not just of birth, but of decision. A line drawn, a statement made. Daniel had given me a child, yes. But I had given Lucas a future untouched by a man who couldn't see beyond himself. It wasn't about revenge. It was about rewriting the script for both of us. Some nights, I'd still hear my phone buzz with unknown numbers. I never answered. There was nothing left to explain. I had made my choice, and it was louder than any voicemail he could ever leave. My son would grow up without the confusion of carrying a name that belonged to betrayal. And while Daniel lived in the illusion of control, I lived in the quiet power of truth. And I knew, sooner or later, that truth would find its way to him. It was a Thursday. Cloudy. Ordinary. I had just finished feeding Lucas and was rocking him gently when there was a knock at the door, firm, familiar, unwelcome. I froze. The knock came again. I walked over slowly, heart pounding, and when I opened it, there he was. Daniel. Holding a bouquet of supermarket flowers like that could erase what he'd done. His face wore that same practiced smile, the one he used when he wanted something. "I just want to see my son," he said. I didn't move, didn't speak. Just looked at him, not with rage, not with sorrow, but with distance. The kind of distance built over sleepless nights, solo appointments, and the quiet strength of surviving without him. Still, I stepped aside. Not out of invitation, out of control. My control. He stepped in, scanning the apartment like he expected something more broken. He didn't see it. The softness, the safety, the peace he had no part in building. And yet, he reached for Lucas. I let him hold the baby. Briefly. Watched as his arms tensed, awkward, unsure. Like he was cradling a stranger's child, which in many ways he was. He looked up at me, trying to muster charm, some sliver of connection. "He looks like me," he said with a smirk. I didn't smile back. I took a slow breath and said the words I'd been holding like a blade. "Meet Lucas Martins, my son, not yours. You lost the right to this family the moment you betrayed it." His face cracked for the first time, not with guilt, but with anger. "You gave him your name?" he snapped, stepping closer, like proximity could intimidate me. "You had no right." The flowers were still clutched in his hand, now crumpled and useless. But I didn't flinch, not this time. I looked him straight in the eyes and replied, steady and unshaken, "Neither did you. You just never realized it." He blinked, stunned. He thought he could walk back in and rewrite history. But I had already rewritten the future. He threw his arms up, pacing. "You're bitter." "You're punishing me," he said, as if the story began when he got uncomfortable. I didn't argue. I just picked up Lucas from his bassinet and held him close. "This isn't punishment," I said calmly. "This is protection. From a man who left when it mattered most." His mouth opened like he had more to say, but the weight of the truth held him silent. He looked around, realizing he was no longer the center of anything. The apartment didn't feel small anymore. It felt full. Full of everything I'd built without him. He tried again, voice quieter this time. "He's still my son." I shook my head. "He's a child, not a claim. Biology doesn't make you a father. Being there does." That stung. I saw it in his jaw, in the way he shifted his weight. But I wasn't there to coddle his ego. I was there to make sure he knew, truly knew, that this life, this peace, he was only visiting it. He stayed for a few more minutes, trying to make small talk. Asking about feedings, sleep patterns, pediatrician visits, like he'd earned the right to those answers. I answered politely, but with measured distance. Every word from me was a reminder this wasn't his home anymore. Lucas stirred in my arms, restless, and I used it as my cue. "It's time for his nap," I said, walking toward the hallway. When I looked back, Daniel was still standing there, as if trying to figure out how everything had slipped away. He set the flowers on the kitchen counter, almost embarrassed, and mumbled, "I'll be in touch." I didn't respond. There was nothing more to say. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and I stood there in the silence, Lucas breathing softly against my chest. I could feel the echo of that visit hanging in the air, but not like a wound, more like a final chapter. I hadn't just survived him, I had outgrown him, and he finally knew it. That night, I rocked Lucas to sleep while humming the lullaby my mother used to sing to me. The apartment glowed in that warm, golden way it does when everything inside is calm. I whispered promises into his tiny ear, not about what he'd have, but about what he'd never lack. Never lack love, never lack truth, never carry someone else's shame. And as I laid him in his crib, I knew Daniel would come back again. But next time, I'd be even stronger. The weeks turned into months, and my world found a rhythm, gentle, messy, beautiful. Mornings started with baby giggles and lukewarm coffee. Nights ended with lullabies and quiet victories. I was still tired, still figuring things out. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was building something real, not just a home, but a life. Lucas grew fast, reaching for everything, laughing with his whole body. And every time he smiled, it felt like the universe was saying, "You chose right." I started an online business from the kitchen table, small at first. Handmade baby items, journals, pieces of the life I was living. Orders came slowly, then steadily. Each one felt like a tiny win, a reminder that I was capable of more than just survival. Lena cheered me on, showing up with snacks and moral support. We laughed about product names and shipping delays. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. And I was proud, not in a loud way, but in a soul-deep kind of way. Daniel tried to fight back, filed paperwork, claimed rights, rattled cages he thought would shake me. But the law saw through him, just like I had. He hadn't signed anything at birth, hadn't supported us, hadn't even tried to apologize. The court sided with me, permanently. When the judge ruled in my favor, I didn't cry. I just exhaled, like I'd been holding my breath since the moment I found those messages. The war was over, and my son, still mine. Fully, freely, fiercely mine. Lucas said his first word on a quiet Tuesday morning. "Mama," just like that, like it had always been waiting on his tongue. I froze, then laughed, then cried, all at once. No audience, no fanfare, just the two of us in the soft light of our little kitchen. And in that tiny, perfect moment, every sleepless night, every ache, every lonely step I had taken, it all folded into something whole. He chose me with that word, not by blood, by love. I found myself again, but in a new shape, not just mother, but woman, independent, steady. I learned how to ask for help without guilt, how to say no without apology. My body had changed, my priorities had shifted, and so had my soul. And I liked who I was becoming, strong in softness, brave in silence. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just living, freely, fully, in a life I built from the ashes. Every now and then, someone would ask about Lucas's father, at daycare, at the park. I'd just smile and say, "It's just us." And that was enough. I didn't owe anyone the story. I didn't owe Daniel my peace. I had reclaimed it, piece by piece, day by day. Through every bottle, every nap, every midnight rocking chair moment, I was writing a different legacy, one not born of fear, but of freedom. One not shaped by his name, but strengthened by mine. One Saturday afternoon, I sat on a bench at the park, watching Lucas chase bubbles with the kind of laughter that turns heads. Lena was beside me, sipping iced tea, her legs stretched out toward the sun. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Watching him run, so free, so joyful, was enough. His cheeks were flushed, his curls wild, his giggle untamed. No shadow followed him. No ghost of a name that didn't belong. Just Lucas. Just love. I snapped a photo. Not for social media, just for me. To remember what this day looked like. What healing felt like. There was no grand triumph. No dramatic final act. Just a life, rebuilt quietly, rooted in truth. That's the thing no one tells you. Freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes softly, in a breeze across your face while your child laughs in the distance. And in that softness, you realize you made it. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in gold and lavender, I held Lena's hand and smiled. He left me when I needed him most, I said, watching Lucas roll in the grass. But I gave my son something he never could, a name without shame. And in that single sentence, I closed the door on the past. Not with bitterness, with grace, with finality. Because the legacy we carry isn't just the one we're born into. It's the one we choose to create.